How much would you pay for a used toothbrush, or fake jewelry, or used golf clubs? It's always amazing to me to hear what people will pay at an auction house versus a garage sale for the seemingly very same item. An identical item could be sold at an auction house for thousands of dollars, but at a rummage sale, it might only go for pennies. At the famous Sotheby's auction house in New York City, a used toothbrush actually sold for $21,000. Why? Well, it belonged to Napoleon Bonaparte. A fake pearl necklace was sold for $215,000. Why? Because it actually belonged to Jackie Onassis Kennedy. And a set of used wooden golf clubs sold for $772,500. Again, why? Because it belonged to former President John F. Kennedy. The difference on what people will pay or give for something, it's based on the value that they perceive that that item has. It could be because of who owned it, or they might give large sums of money for who it's going to be for. Welcome to the Word for 2022. Today we're finishing up the book of 2 Samuel. We are in chapter 24. Here in chapter 24, David, he realizes that he has sinned. He confesses his sin to God, and God gives him 3 options as a consequence. God said, you can choose between 3 years of a famine, 3 months of fleeing from your enemies, or 3 days of a plague. It says that David chose the plague because he would rather fall into the hand of God, for his mercy is great compared to the hands of men. As we read this chapter, God had mercy and compassion upon Jerusalem, and he told the angel to stop his destruction. David then goes to build an altar of sacrifice to the Lord. He wants to buy a threshing floor to build the altar upon. The owner of that threshing floor land actually wants to give the land to David and all the materials to make the sacrifice. But David says, no, I insist on paying, for I will not sacrifice to the Lord that which costs me nothing. Nothing is free. Even a free gift. Someone had to pay for that gift before it could be given as a gift. In Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8, this is what we read. For by the grace of God we have been saved through faith, and not of ourselves. It is the free gift of God. The grace of God is free. Salvation is free. Grace and salvation, they are free gifts from God, but it cost God His Son. Jesus paid for our forgiveness, for our redemption. He paid for our salvation. He paid with His life. With His very blood, He purchased our forgiveness and freedom. As we read this chapter, David knew that God was worthy of nothing less than His very best. God deserved an offering that came from His heart. Not leftovers, not second best, but something with substance. David knew that his sacrifice needed to be something that had a cost attached to it. Why? Because God had given him so much, and therefore he had to give back to God. David wanted to present a sacrifice to God, and he knew that if it didn't cost, then it really was not a sacrifice. So he was willing to give or to pay whatever it cost because he knew who that sacrifice was for. His heavenly Father, the one that saved him, the one that redeemed him, the one that would never leave him or forsake him, the one that provided everything that he had, the one who loved him and held him in his hands. David loved the Lord. Therefore, love prompted him to give no matter what the cost, because God is worthy. Thank you for joining the Word for 2022.